And hello, I'm your host, Sensei Pong, and welcome back to another Sensei PONGCAST, a little news, well, not the important news, but gaming news podcast, where I talk about things and other things, things I've been playing, and some of the news in gaming. Yeah, something like that. I don't know. I'm sure there's better venues that you can listen to than my sultry, velvety voice, but, you come here probably by accident, and that's okay with me. Thank you for listening. Oh yeah, by the way, apparently a few days ago it was Valentine's Day, and I didn't make a Valentine's special. Surprise, surprise. Anyways, happy Valentine's Day to those who enjoy the holiday, and I'm sorry for those who don't. Leave your comments down below if you're watching this on YouTube. I don't know, what did you do on Valentine's Day? I didn't really do much. Anyways, so let's just move on in. Things that we're going to be covering today are basically the news, because there's been quite a bit of news going on. But first off, the games I've been playing, and it's actually a relatively short list, and then my games of the week. And maybe there's going to be a Valentine's themed one in there. I don't know. I haven't completely decided. It's being decided on the fly. Give me a break. Now, alright, so let's carry on. So what have I been playing? Anyways, so good news, bad news. If anybody that pays attention to my Twitter may have noticed that my laptop broke. So yeah, that's dead. And that's also why this is actually a few days late, so I apologize. Yeah, it was my fault. I messed up with the system files because I was trying to fix something, and I ended up screwing up a system file with super anti-spyware. Don't get that. Don't use it. It's okay for what it is, but I don't know. I completely fudged up my computer. Now I'm going to have to just wipe it and reinstall Windows at this point, I think, because it's just not even wanting to start up. I'm even just having a hard time getting into the DOS. Okay, but anyways, that forced me to fix my tower, which I have, so that's what I'm recording on now, which is awesome, because this thing is a bit more powerful, so that's good. Maybe I can actually do some Let's Plays of games people care of, that people care of. So yeah, that's nice, but because of this new computer, well, it's not new, but this broken computer that I fixed, which is actually pretty decent, I've been back on playing Paladins, and I actually re-downloaded dorA.thI onto this thing, and I also downloaded Heroes of the Storm. I've been playing a bit of Fire Emblem Heroes more on my phone, and I got myself into World of Tanks Blitz, which is pretty fun, and what is that? Oh, okay, that's not even a game, that's just a side note. I put down World of Howitzers. Howitzers. Can't even speak right. So what are these games? Paladins, I've talked about it before. I apologize for those who don't care. But it made me really curious, and I was like, oh man, I kind of want to play this. That was actually the game that was messing up for some reason with some system file. I want to fix it. Blah, blah, blah. Paladins has introduced two new characters. Maeve and what was the other guy's name? He's a frontliner. Torvald, that's right. His name was Torvald. Torvald is kind of like an old guy, wizard, one-armed bandit dude that has like this pretty decent shielding. He has a crazy health amount, but his shielding is kind of similar to Ruckus, where it's like a personal shield. So you actually have to, if you want to block other characters and take the front of the damage, you have to actually be in front of them. But that's fine. And his attack is kind of like this beam, like kind of a shorter range beam that can like sap the health off other people. Well, not sap. That would assume that he's actually doing kind of a vampire move of sucking the health out of him and giving it to himself, which is not what he's doing. But he's okay. He's not bad. I haven't had a whole lot of time to play him because the other character was more interesting, because I was looking at like some discussions on the Steam website and people talking about Maeve and asking, is there a good counter to Maeve? Maeve is overpowered. She needs to be nerfed. And I was thinking to myself, ooh, overpowered characters, I gotta try that. Anyways, okay, Maeve isn't super overpowered. She doesn't have that much health, and I think that's the balancing factor for her, but she does a crazy amount of damage if you can actually aim. And, honestly, if you've played the game more than enough, you probably can. Crazy, like, fast runner, and has this attack that, similar to Grover, where it's like just an attack and then like a re-equip, roll fast and then attack, re-equip, attack. She throws two throwing knives and then gets more knives out of nowhere. Who knows where that's coming from? But she has like an endless supply of knives. Don't have to worry about video game logic here. But they're pretty good. And she also has like this like pounce thing that she can like pounce at other characters, because I think the character background story is that she's like cat-like and a street rat or something, and attacks in like stabbing things, which I'm okay with. That's cool. Anyways, so yeah, I got to try out Maeve a little bit, and well, as much as I could. Anytime a new character comes out, people tend to pick them only because they're like, oh, I've got to try this character out. I want to try him out. So if you're not quick enough, obviously you're not going to be able to pick that character for your team, be it casual or competitive. But do I like Torvald and do I like Maeve? Yeah, they're nice attachments to the game, and it's nice to see the roster slowly build up with relatively solid characters. Though, surprisingly, I actually did look into a tier list, because people like making tier lists and saying which character is better than the other because of different reasons. And usually they're not always perfect, but they give you a really good idea of what character really has a bunch of disadvantages and only works situationally, while other characters can work really well in a whole bunch of different situations. Though I was quite surprised to see Torvald on the S tier and Maeve awaiting placement on the A tier, because from what it sounded like originally, Maeve was kind of overpowered, so I would assume that she would be on the A plus or S tier. Now, I was quite surprised to see Grok and Sky on the B tier, not the C tier, but the B tier. But I'm not too surprised about that, because Sky does have some... I have to agree with this tier list to some degree, because Grok does have... I've only seen very few people play Grok very well, and that's mostly because his attacks aren't that great, and honestly, just the way he plays, you kind of have to play it to know what I mean. He has a similar attack as Torvald, but as a healer, he's not as easy to use as like the other healers, like Ying or I can't think, even Grover. But Grok ain't too bad. I've seen people play well with him, but I haven't done too much competitive, so maybe I'm completely wrong on that. Maybe once you get to a higher level of playability, Grok's faults start really coming into play. Same with Sky. Maybe Sky's faults really start coming into play, because according to this description, it says she's easily countered by items and easily shut down in a coordinated team, which I can see that, because with a well-coordinated team, I have playing Sky myself and playing Grok too. Yeah, I can see them being cumbersome and dangerous to play, only because if they know what you're doing, you gotta really you gotta really be sneaky and really play to those points of knowing the map inside and out, and knowing the other team and inside and out to really play them well, unless you have like certain things. And which I was quite surprised to see Tyra on the B plus tier. Then again, I have to agree, unfortunately she has no quote-unquote outs. Then again, I've seen a lot of people play Tyra really well. Anyways, enough of that. Some of y'all don't care, but Paladins is fun. It's a free-to-play little game, and you can pretty much unlock everybody to some degree with just a little bit of play. So, yeah, that's cool. No money down. So yes, I'm back on the MOBA train. At some point very soon, I'll probably re-download League of Legends, but just to kind of warm myself back up into it and come to the realization, man, I still suck at MOBA games. I've been playing Dota 2 and Heroes of the Storm. Yeah, not too much of them, but because, oh my gosh, I need to level up on Dota, because I really haven't played much of any of it since my last account. But dude, freaking the matchmaking on Dota 2 needs to be fixed. They need to like get some automatic system in there if people want like an automatic system. I know there's quick play, but I sat there for like 3 minutes on quick play. I was like, maybe it was just a bad time of the day or something. But yeah, no, I was sitting there for a few minutes, just be like, ain't this quick play? I don't know, whatever. And so I went into the lobbies, and sometimes those lobbies are very unreliable, and people just start up lobbies and go AFK, and it's like, why would you do this? So anywho, yeah, but Dota 2 is fun. I still suck at it terribly. Same with Heroes of the Storm. Both are good. Do I have any preferences on LoL, Heroes, or Dota 2? Not really. I like them all, because sometimes you're just in the mood for a MOBA. I wouldn't call myself like a real hardcore player, though I've studied different strategies and looked at tier lists and reasons behind those tier lists and tried to up my game a bit to play better. And I understand the strategies behind it. Am I good at implementing them? Not always. Oh, okay, never mind. I was looking at something. Oh, okay, I understand that. I'm still looking at the tier list for Paladins. Move Tira to B plus tier. With the right loadout, she's capable of attaining good movement speed. Still very weak to flankers. And I'd have to agree with that from what I've noticed. Playing Tyra and playing against Tyra as a flanker. Anyways, whatever. Let's stop talking about that game, so let's close out that window on my computer. Am I still recording? Yes, I am. Okay, good. Had to be sure about that. So what else have I played? Fire Emblem Heroes? Yeah. So apparently I was playing a casual game all wrong. I looked at the appearance rates and looked at how the drop rates were for different heroes on Fire Emblem, and I was like, oh, okay, well I'm doing these draws all wrong. The best way to do it is actually just do a full 5 orb draw anytime you get it, and they now have a new bunch of heroes to summon, and the original opening 2 sets of heroes that were the opening heroes is out, so you can't get, as far as I know, you're not going to be able to obtain Lyn or Marth, if that matters to you, so I apologize if you didn't get them. I got Lyn and I got Roy, so haha. No, Roy's on the new list, I think. Whatever. But yeah, what you want to do is actually just summon all the orbs all at once. And if you've played Brave Exvius, Final Fantasy, or some other game that has a very similar gachapon mechanic, you probably already know this. But I didn't. I don't play these casual games to any hardcore extent. They're casual to me. I don't really play a whole bunch of these. The ones I do play are normally just puzzle games because they're therapeutic to some degree. But we all have our own little vices when it comes to that sort of thing. But yeah, no, I was doing it all wrong because I would summon maybe 3 orbs at a time, 4 orbs, maybe even just 1. And I realized, doing the math, and then hearing it on another podcast just confirmed my analysis of the whole thing. If you draw 5 over and over again, chances are you're going to get a 5-star gold character at some point soon. And doing that technique, I already got 3 of them now. So I'm just okay, bam. Not necessarily the characters I want, because now I have 2 gold star sword fighters, and I'd rather have a gold star axe fighter to kind of balance my team. But whatever. Or maybe even just a green mage or something like that. On my playlist, I also have Google Opinion rewards. I know that's not a game, and this I swear this ain't no ad. But they don't do surveys very often. It's a survey app by Google, so it's relative. I can trust it that the money you receive from those surveys will go to your Google Play account. So if you just want to get some chump change for your Google Play account for some point of maybe some phone DLC or buying some more quote unquote premium mobile game, doing Google what was that called again? Google Opinion rewards. Look for that in the Google Play Store. And they don't do surveys very often, but you will get a few cents maybe once a week. Maybe 10 cents, 20 cents. It really depends on the survey. But they're really short surveys, so don't expect a 10 to 20 questionnaire. Literally, one survey I did was just 2 questions. I forget what it was. It was something like, have you seen an action movie recently in the past 6 months? Are you African American? And that was it. I was like, okay, bam. Apparently they're trying to figure out, the watch rate of different minorities, which, yeah, that's creepy. But whatever. Census is free money. So if you're not cool with that kind of stuff, I don't recommend it. Normally I'm not cool with that kind of stuff if people gather my info. But you know what? It doesn't matter. You don't even have to don't quote me on this. But you can play up a character and you don't even have to answer these surveys honestly, because it's the internet. How are they gonna know? How are they gonna know? Unless you play up some real crazy extremist, you're not going to be setting off any red flags to anybody paying attention to these surveys. I just had this. Okay, yeah. Don't do that. I don't want y'all, my listeners, to get in trouble. That's a bad idea. Yeah, I'm kind of excited to work on this computer from now on with all my other work. I have a couple other little problems that need to be fixed on it, but overall it's running fine now. It was a relatively easy software fix. It wasn't a hardware problem, it was a software problem with the operating system. So, Reigns of Onyx, if you're listening to this, thank you for the computer. I fixed it, finally. Finally got the money to replace some things and stuff. But that was cool. I was like, yeah, I got this. It's nice. Very, very nice. All right, so let's move on to the gaming news. That's loud. The gaming. Let's do that over again. Gaming news. The gaming news. News and gaming. News for you. All right, so I know this is old news, and I probably should have known it when it first happened, but January 22nd, 2017, Namco Bandai's Masagaya Nakamura died. He was the founder of Namco and is often referred to as the father of Pac-Man, and I know some of you hardcore people will be like, well, no, he's not really the father of Pac-Man. He's not the guy that developed the game. But look, even Namco called him the father of Pac-Man. Even the developer, what was his name? Toru Iwatani, I think. Iwatani Toru. Yeah, even he was like okay with the name, the title of the father of Pac-Man for him. And, you know, honestly, it is a sad thing because, yeah, maybe he wasn't like the biggest developer, but he was like the forefront guy for Namco, and he pushed Namco to get into the arcade business. And you gotta realize, now I'm too young, believe it or not, to remember those days. But like when Pac-Man came out, I was not even a glint in my father's eye. But like, no, maybe I was. But I don't want to think about that. No, like you gotta remember this. Before like the age of arcades, video games and arcade games that were out at the time were things like Space Invaders and other random games like I can't think of anything off the top of my head. It's kind of late. Some Taito titles, and I want to say there was a couple Namco titles, but and a few racing games and like shooty games, but very simple games that didn't really have a whole bunch of character or weren't really directed towards an audience, like a broad audience that would be like welcoming to like everybody, like children, female, family, that sort of thing. But he had this idea of bringing more family friendly and general public friendly games and arcade games everywhere, and that's where he saw the future going. And without him, you wouldn't have Pac-Man. He wouldn't have pushed for a game like Pac-Man, and he wouldn't have pushed for games like Mappy or Galaga or, you know, things that have a bit more appeal to it. And speaking of Pac-Man, Pac-Man was the first video game mascot. He became the most recognizable. Now, I'm too young for suffering from the ailment of Pac-Man fever, but Pac-Man fever was a real thing. Hundreds and thousands of people died. No, I'm kidding. It was terrible. The hospitals were overrun with Pac-Man fever. That's terrible. That's an old joke too, but it still makes me laugh. I got the Pac-Man fever. I got it. Popping pills everywhere. No, hallucinating ghosts. No, an addiction to fruit. Or definitely not scurvy. But and let's talk about Junior Pac-Man. Then you're eating toys. No, but no, okay, seriously, without that, you wouldn't really have the general appeal because it was groundbreaking to have that. With Pac-Man becoming so popular, he ended up having cereal, he had toys, he had a #1 single on the music billboards, popular music, a song literally called Pac-Man Fever. But like, it's just craziness to imagine that. And people, businessmen, the people with the money to pay the developers to push these ideas, finally realized, oh my gosh, there's actual money in this. We can actually do something with this. So, without that success of Namco, maybe we might not even see like Nintendo really start pushing like Donkey Kong and Jumpman, aka Mario, and then like really seriously think about doing the NES because it was after the video game crash. Maybe we wouldn't have seen that without Namco. Namco kept the arcades alive during the video game crash. You can almost say that single-handedly. Yeah, sure, Taito was important, but Namco is where it's at. Even growing up as a kid during like the waning, like the second half and waning days of the arcades during like the late 80s and 90s, there was always a Namco title there. It doesn't matter. Namco was always huge. And even these days, once they finally merged with Namco Bandai, they became a powerhouse. And then you've got games like Dark Souls. You've got games like Mr. Driller. I don't know why I coupled Mr. Driller with Dark Souls, but you've got the Tales series. You've got a bunch of different RPGs. You got a nice mix of casual games and hardcore games that very few companies can really pin down and do well. And I think the only other company that really comes up to any power towards Namco, well, arguably better. Depends who you talk to, really, because I see them as equals personally. But Nintendo and Namco, they're like the big, Namco Bandai Namco, who, I don't know if Bandai's first in the official name of the company. I want to say it's Bandai Namco, but it's almost as important to the gaming industry and the history of popular culture and entertainment of the modern age as any other company, like Apple or Microsoft or Sony or Warner Brothers, Netflix. I don't know. Just start listing off things that are important, that have shaped the face of society and entertainment and the way things are enjoyed or not. It really depends. I ain't gonna say all Namco games are awesome. Freaking Pac-Man 2. I know people... Okay, hold up. I don't mean any disrespect to Nakamura, but Pac-Man 2, The New Adventures. Some people look back on that with like fond nostalgia, and I still don't understand why personally. No, maybe a little bit. I can be like, oh well, yeah, that was a funny time. But I'm more on the camp of the AVGN because I remember when that thing came out, and I was so excited. I was like, Pac-Man 2? Not like a Miss Pac-Man, Junior Pac-Man, Baby Pac-Man, Super Pac-Man, blah, 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 like Pac Attack, an actual Pac-Man 2. This is gonna be awesome. And then my friend was like, I went over to my friend's house and he had a Super Nintendo and he had Pac-Man 2, the New Adventures. And I was like, oh, you got Pac-Man 2, the New Adventures? How is it? And he just suddenly got this look of sadness on his face. It's like, yeah, it's okay. I'm like, oh, come on. How is it, what's it like? Is it fun? Is it cool? He's like, yeah, it's not really Pac-Man. I'm like, what do you mean? And then we play it, and it's got that weird like slingshot mechanic. I'm like, what is this? I'm not even controlling Pac-Man. I'm just shooting things with the D-pad. This is terrible. Oh, and thus started my uneasiness towards sequels. All sequels. Thank you, direct to VHS Disney movies. Though I'm going to have to say Return of Jafar has its nice moments to some degree, but it's not that great. There's a bunch of Disney sequels that are terrible. Yeah, no. Regardless of that, I still respected Namco's because I love Pac Attack. I love puzzle games. Pac Attack is fun. A lot of people hated it, but Pac Attack is actually an interesting idea. It's it's hard to pull off combos sometimes because you gotta really kind of plan it out. I haven't played it in a few years, but it's pretty fun. So go check that out. Some weird Namco game that you probably never heard of. Maybe you have if you're old like me, but for the new kids out there on the block, oh man, that is an old reference. But showing my age. No, for younger kids that wouldn't know what Pack Attack is, it's basically Namco's Pac-Man themed reply to Tetris. Go check it out. It's an interesting game to say the least. And it does have some neat mechanics that may be appreciated more these days than back then because people were expecting more of a Pac-Man thing because most people don't enjoy change in like a game that they love, and a lot of people love Pac-Man and miss Pac-Man. But there's that it's not Pac-Man. It really isn't because it's a arcade like dropper puzzle. But it's worth a look if you're into that sort of thing. At least try it once. If you can find a copy, I don't know. I want to say it got released on the Game Boy, Super NES, maybe the Genesis? I don't remember exactly all where Pack Attack was released outside of the arcade. But maybe it's hard to find, so if I'm not going to condone this action, but if you can find the ROM or somewhere to play it online, I recommend looking for it because it's surprisingly fun. But let's stop talking about Pack Attack and carry on to another news article that happened. The ZeniMax trial with Facebook and Oculus Rift. That was something to look into. And so I apparently didn't look into it deep enough because I soon realized what the gravity of the situation could have been. After listening to Pat the NES Punk and watching Super Bunny Hop talk about it, and then both YouTubers you should probably check out for different opinions on video games because they both have pretty good opinions on what the gaming news is actually like. Regardless of whether you agree with them socially or not, they have a pretty good insight on the gaming industry. But so the case was settled, and Facebook had to pay ZeniMax for $500 million. Now that sounds like a lot of money, and it really is. It's a gross amount of money that I don't necessarily understand because I've never made multi-millions, and I'm sure you haven't. So it's once you start getting into those like hundreds of millions of dollars, it becomes like such a large amount of cash. So it's like, what is that actually like? I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, point is, what was funny is that the Facebook guy basically said, "Oh, it wasn't that big of a loss. It's fine. This is a win for us." Man, they've got to have a lot of money if they're going to be saying, "No, this is a win for us. We lost $500 million, but it's a win." Honestly, it is, because it would have been $4 billion if ZeniMax was able to get all the money that they sued for. Basically, the reason for the $500 million was because they broke DMC and contracts on. Is that the right term? It's late. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. Like different contract things about releasing information on games and different things, and information embargoes and review embargoes on that sort of thing for games and equipment and all that sort of thing. So yes, they broke contract there. But apparently it was one of those things where it's like the coding to let the Oculus Rift actually work wasn't like a copy-paste mirror image of what Oculus Rift did and is right now versus what ZeniMax researched years ago. So and even though it's similar, apparently the argument is closer to something. For some weird reason, my microphone cut out. It's a case that's actually closer to something that happened back in 1994 with Capcom versus Data East, which was a company back in the day that made video games, a video game developer, software developer. And it's one of those things. What happened with that was Capcom sued Data East for copyright infringement on their game Street Fighter II, saying that Data East is making all these fighting games and they're ripping off Street Fighter II. Now, Capcom lost, and thank goodness for that, because the idea was, the reason why Capcom didn't win is it was a defense of saying, well, this is actually just a genre of games. You got to have certain AI and, UI implements in the game to make it work and to make it playable and fun, like health bars and combos. You can't copyright something like that. It would be similar to somebody copyrighting the hero cycle, or a slasher horror movie, or something like the creators of Nightmare on Elm Street suing, Halloween, or, the Jason movies, because, you have slasher horror and you have these tropes of, teenagers being dumb and characters being dumb and doing stupid things in these horror movies, and you have these tropey characters and you're ripping us off. You can't do that because that's the genre. Or like a rom-com where it'd be like, suing Woody Allen suing, I don't know why You've Got Mail came to my mind, but the writers of Sleepless in Seattle for ripping off, Annie Hall. I know that Annie Hall was a bad example, but Annie Hall, Harry Met Sally, or whatever. Any rom-com suing another rom-com because, you have these implements and these story structures and saying, well, no, you ripped us off because these ideas are very similar. You can't do that because it's a genre. And thank goodness for that. So what happened to Data East? Well, their games kind of stunk. And they didn't sell well. So maybe the damages money for the court case kept them afloat for long enough. But basically, that's the idea. The technology for VR is non-copyrightable, and it's not trademarkable. Like, the product itself is trademarkable. Like, I can't create my own VR headset and be like, this is the Oculus Raft. That's so stupid. The Oculus Raft headset from the Sensei Pong collection. Yeah, of course, that's trademark infringement, copyright infringement of, Oculus, Facebook's property, because I'm ripping off their name and saying, it's just as good, But you can't. It'd be like maybe the coding for the Vive and maybe the coding for the PSVR and the coding for the Oculus Rift are so similar because it's computer programming. Of course, the engines may be a little bit different, but when I mean engines, I mean like the gaming engines, the software engines to create the software or the games for those consoles or like headsets. But maybe the coding is a bit similar because you're still using like 3D imagery, double stereoscopic, images at two different points, and it's similar stuff. You can't sue somebody for that unless it's like a copy-paste exact steal, which it wasn't. So that protected Facebook from that. So apparently that was good. That's, to some degree, that's a good thing. A good thing for the consumers, so I'm okay with that. So that's what happened with that. Oh, this was an interesting one. So recently, there was, I want to say it was maybe IGN that first put it out. Maybe it was Kotaku. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I think all the articles came out at around the same time. But it was news on Zelda Breath of the Wild that there's going to be essentially a season pass for it. And what that's going to include is a $20 extra for the DLC. The first run of DLC will have a thing called the Cave of Trials Challenge and access to a hard mode and a new feature for the game map. What's that feature for the game map? I don't know. What the Cave of Trials is basically is just like a level to level like grind fest thing that's fun because it's a challenge and you progressively get harder and harder and see how far you can go. Maybe there's something at the end that you can unlock and get a special item. But it's like a tower or like dungeon crawl of attacking enemies in an arena after arena after arena, and that's a cool mode. Those are actually quite fun and add a bit of life to the game. And access to a hard mode, obviously you know what that is. The second run of DLC that's going to come out when the game releases on March 3rd. Second run of DLC is three treasure chests are going to be unlockable at the Great Plateau, which unusually, it's not unusual, it's more funny. It includes a new t-shirt for Link where he can wear a Nintendo Switch red t-shirt or something like that. I have no idea. Another one is a new dungeon, new original story. So basically like an expansion and an additional challenge. What that challenge is going to be, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's been linked. I want to say they want to keep that kind of information closer to the chest, unless they want to reveal it at E3, which they probably will, because Breath of the Wild is their big game of the year until comes Super Mario Odyssey. But because at that point, Breath of the Wild is going to be like 9 months old. Come Christmas, it's about 9 months old. A lot of secrets have been already been out, and the people that want to buy it would probably have bought it. That really want to buy it would have gotten it right away within the first few months. But the big thing that is interesting about this is a lot of people, I mean a lot of YouTubers, a lot of game journalists, got a lot of game commentators are up in arms or sighing or just angry and sad and all sorts of things about Nintendo from doing a season pass with their game. And I can understand that. I can agree with that actually. I've been caught saying, "Oh, I miss the days when, I miss the good old days when I buy a game and it actually be complete." And that's commentary on patches and glitches and new versions of the same game, but it's like, when you used to have secrets or something, you'd have to actually play the game or like 100% it or unlock some secret or type in some cheat code. And those kind of secrets would already be in the game. You just have to figure it out yourself, which is cool. And a lot of games don't do that kind of stuff anymore, and it's really quite sad. And I can understand it. From a business aspect, if everybody else has jumped off the bridge and gotten millions of dollars out of it, and survived, why doesn't Nintendo do it too? And Nintendo has done DLC in the past too, so it's not that big of a surprise that they finally get on board with a major release having a season pass type DLC pack. So I understand. And is a season pass going to sell? Yes, it is. People like that. People like getting premium products, or at least the feeling of getting a premium product, because not all season passes, I'm not talking about Nintendo specifically, but not all season passes are really premium. You got to actually sieve through and look through it. Does $20 really validate, an expanded story, Cave of Trials mode, and access to a hard mode? I think the access to a hard mode should have already been in the game, just the base game. I can understand DLC for a new original story and a new dungeon and all that, as long as it's priced well. But for everything that is there, $20 doesn't seem that bad, honestly, because it's basically a full expansion pack at that point. And we've never really had a full expansion pack that you can just tack onto a Zelda game. I could be wrong. I want to say I'm not. But that's kind of cool. I'm okay with that. But at the same time, I agree with people. It really depends how big the base game actually is. And we won't know how big the game is until March 3rd, until the game finally releases. If it is as big as they say it is, I'm kind of okay with it. I can understand the extra money that needs to be thrown down, because that's a lot of money time that Nintendo had to put into developing, and if it covers their costs plus the profit to grow their company, yeah, I can't really argue against it. They're not being super skeezy about it. They're not saying, well, pay $5 for this new skin. It's not like that. It's not, unless that skin to a character is super important to you. But I don't know. It's not that big of a deal. Every other company's done it, and I don't see a whole rabble-rousing group of people, up in arms about that. And I understand there's a difference. It's Nintendo. Nintendo doesn't do that. Nintendo shouldn't do that. Do you want them to make money? Do you want them to move along with how the gaming industry is going? They should be evolving as a company, right? At some point, they're going to have to do something like this with a major title. And this is the first major title they're doing it with. Like, big one, I'm talking about. Big titles that they're doing it with. Yeah, sure. The additional characters to Smash Brothers on Smash 4 and Smash 3DS was kind of like, I miss the days when I had to actually unlock a character, not just buy it. But I understand that. But they were testing the waters, and it did well. Or at least it did well enough where they can honestly think to themselves, well, having this expansion pack as a $20 extra charge is a good idea. So maybe they know what they're doing. Let's calm down. put our pants back on. Nintendo will be fine. Because apparently, companies make buku cash off just all the accessories. So, they should be fine. They should be making a profit at least, I would think. Those sold out numbers don't necessarily count because we don't know how much they're actually flooding into the market or not flooding into the market. They could just be like withholding so many. Who knows? It'll be interesting to see how that goes. I think this will be a serious non-issue a week after the game releases. I think people won't even think about it. People won't even care because they'll be like, well, no. Then people that had put down the extra $20 for the game will start defending it, even though maybe like 3 weeks before, right now, they're like, oh, I hate this DLC thing for the Zelda, Breath of the Wild. But once they have it in their hands, they're like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing ever. So it's going to become a non-issue in about a month or two. So like seriously, it's not going to be an issue. What was my other thing? Oh, apparently 61 games have been confirmed for the Switch. What's the release time? I don't know. There's at least 6 games now for the Switch on March 3rd, so that's not too bad. That's better than what we thought with just 3 games. Not much more to that. So, here's some interesting news. I didn't report it earlier, I don't believe, but I'll report it now. Apocalypse Now. Yeah, some of you, definitely the film buffs of my audience, would know this movie, Apocalypse Now. It's the Francis Ford Coppola movie that takes place in Vietnam during the Vietnam War. That's based off of Joseph Conrad's The Heart of Darkness. So, yeah, heavy, gritty, gut-wrenching, almost traumatizing. Well, it is traumatizing movie, but moving, amazing story and good movie. So yes, what's my point? Well, Francis Ford Coppola and a few other people started a Kickstarter to raise $900,000, and they didn't reach their goal. So they moved their Kickstarter fundraiser to campaign to their own personal website or their own campaigning site for $9 million. That's a big jump. But if they couldn't make $900,000 on the Kickstarter, but they want to make $9 million on their own fundraising website, good luck. Good luck. No. Oh my gosh. Do a barrel roll because you ain't getting out of this one. They said it's gonna be like a Fallout 4 type game or something like that. I'm probably getting my information wrong. But am I curious about an Apocalypse Now game? Yes, I am. But it needs to be heavily story driven, and it can't be like a Call of Duty or Battlefield type game where it's just like a straight up shooter or a corridor shooter or whatever you want to call it, or a mission shooter. It's just gonna be, I don't know. They have to be very careful with that game to make it really good. Though, which reminds me, I haven't been able to find the graphic novel series, but there was a funny parody called Apocalypse Meow, where all the characters were cats, except for certain countries. China were pandas, and the French were pigs, and Russia were bears. Go look up Apocalypse Meow. It's kind of cute if you can find it for any of my comic book junkies out there. I was only able to read like one book in the series, so I don't know how good the actual series is. Does it fall apart halfway through? I don't know. Do I want to read the entire series? Yes. Yes, I do. Is it kid-friendly? No, it's not, because it's based off Apocalypse Now. But so what's my point with this? Well, if you want to support the project, go ahead if you do. It's your personal choice. You have that option, and you have the right to make that choice. Do I think they're going to make the $9 million? No. If there wasn't enough backing on Kickstarter, I highly doubt there's going to be backing on their own personal site without huge marketing. And just having Kickstarter, like buzz and, rumors and like talk and all that kind of stuff. If that didn't help you, just doing that and then cutting off onto your own website, you're not going to be able to get the $9 million unless you find a producer or a major game developer to actually back it. It's not going to happen. I don't know. I just don't see that becoming a game that we're actually going to see. Maybe we will in the future, and I could be wrong, and it's going to be amazing. or it's going to be absolute garbage. It's too early to tell. So moving on, there is some fun mobile gaming news for Pokemon Go. For anybody that's still playing that, I'm not. But Pokemon Go has added 80 new Gen 2 Pokemon and new evolution items, including Nabnab berries and Pinap berries, for anybody that knows the series. Now, the Nabnab berries and Nanab berries and Pinap berries in the game do different things than what it does in Pokemon Go, but what the Nab berries do is it slows the Pokemon that you're trying to catch down so it's easier to catch, and Pinap berries, if you throw it at the Pokemon and then catch the Pokemon that had the Pinap berry, it gives you an extra Poke Candy. So that's cool, and I like that. And is this going to revitalize Pokemon Go into the giant phenomenon that it was last summer? Probably not, but it still has a huge player base. So I don't get on my back for this, but the game ain't dead. There's still well over a couple million people at least playing, or even more than that. Who knows? I don't really know. I want to say it just got introduced to South Korea. So, now you got the whole South Korean audience playing in on it. And South Korea is huge on gaming. I don't know if they're as big on mobile gaming as Japan is, but I know that they have a huge gaming audience. So there you go. The game's not dead. The game's going to be alive for years to come, as far as I can tell, for at least another several years. But, considering that, a lot of people are going to argue that they should have had these features earlier, and I would have to kind of agree with them to some degree. Niantic is, at this point, notoriously inexperienced. And I don't mean to be mean to Niantic. They're the developers behind Pokemon Go, not really the Pokemon Company. Pokemon Company licensed Pokemon to Niantic. So, for anybody that knows what's going on, no, Nintendo and the Pokemon Company really Game Freak, which is the Pokemon Company, didn't make a huge amount of money, just raking in all the profits. It's split 3 ways between Niantic, Game Freak, and Nintendo. Is it still a large amount of money? Yes, it was. And yes, it is right now. But it's cool. Anyways, if you're into Pokemon Go check that out. Maybe you haven't played in a while, and you still have it on your phone, and you still like the game. Go check it out. It's cool. They added a whole bunch of stuff. My wife Muka still plays, and she actually got Umbreon, and I had a brain fart. I almost said Sylveon. That's not true. It's Espeon. That was Gen 2. Yeah, Espeon and Umbreon, they're cool. That's awesome. So, yeah, good stuff. Go check it out. It looks fun. Oh, this isn't really important news, but apparently Amazon.com is opening up a new game studios company. Well, new gaming studios, game studios, or whatever it's going to be called. You know what I'm talking about. With John Smealy as the head of the gaming studio, as the head developer lead. He's the co-creator of EverQuest, for anybody that's interested. Oh, that is a stupid note, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But in a press release, in like an interview, they were quoted to say that they're going to be, I want to say Amazon owns Twitch, but they're going to be like really concentrating on utilizing the Amazon cloud and Twitch features into their games. So that's cool. I like that. And it's nice, innovative ideas to push the gaming industry forward and all that kind of mumbo jumbo that a lot of people just spatter off. But no, I do like the idea that Amazon might be creating games. It's always nice to see a new developer with money actually come onto the scene, because maybe they might make some awesome games, and then maybe it can be released well and with good marketing and become another huge gaming icon. That'd be cool. Interested to see where that goes. We're probably not going to see anything anytime soon, but something to pay attention to if you're into that. Oh, but anyways, my side note was something I noticed about Smealy was that he has a really round head and looks like Charlie Brown in real life. Or a real-life Charlie Brown. That's so mean. Go Google him. Go look him up. He looks like a real-life Charlie Brown. It's hilarious. And fun and laughs, will presume. That's terrible. So yeah. News has been going on for quite a while. Let's take a small break. And welcome back. Let's carry on. with the news. Some random things. Final Fantasy 15 will be unveiling, well, they already unveiled it. You can look it up. It's actually really ridiculous. But they unveiled the Cup Noodle hat as DLC that will be released later this year. And apparently Nissin, the ramen company behind Cup Noodle, will be releasing a special Final Fantasy flavored Cup Noodle. All oh man, that sounds gross. This soup tastes like Final Fantasy with real chocobo parts in it. Ew, that's gross. But that's fun. Go check it out if you're into Final Fantasy or have Final Fantasy 15. Go look that up. It's hilarious. What was more important here? Get this right. Oh, something interesting. Super Bunny Hop, Nintendo, PlayStation. He has an interesting video up there. I'm not going to really go into detail about this because I don't want to take away from his video, but look up Super Bunny Hop on YouTube for his interview for the two guys that own and found the prototype Nintendo PlayStation. It's actually a fun interview. It's actually pretty good. It goes into detail about how they found the PlayStation, the prototype PlayStation. That was, if you don't know the history, Nintendo and Sony were going to team up and create the PlayStation, but problems ensued, and obviously that didn't happen because we got the N64 and the Sony PlayStation. Nintendo PlayStation didn't happen, but they got the prototype and they got it working, and it's kind of cool. Kind of cool to see, and nice to see that they got it working. I already knew they got it working, but to actually see it work was kind of cool because I'm into that sort of thing. Oh, yeah, because I didn't mention it last time or the time before, the GameStop Circle of Life program. And so I don't get into a rant about this, I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible. It was first reported by, I want to say, Kotaku, which is a gaming news site, if you don't know, with some inside information from GameStop, where GameStop is basically lying to their customers and treating their employees terribly. Am I surprised? No. Really? Really? Are we surprised at this point? Are we gasping, being like, oh my gosh, GameStop with bad business practice? Who would have seen that one coming? Yeah, so basically what the Circle of Life program is that they're pushing for pre-owned sales over new sales. And if their employees don't make certain numbers on pre-owned sales, but sell a whole bunch of new sales, which would be like new consoles, new games that haven't been used, they can get fired for that because they're just not making the sales numbers for the pre-owned games, like old Wii games or used new games or whatever, or used consoles. So yeah, that's pretty skeezy. And to actually survive in the company as a sales rep or a manager, you have to lie to your customers. And do I feel sorry for them? Yes, I do, because that's a crap situation. So what they have to do is, if someone would be like, hey, do you have a copy of Final Fantasy 15? They might, but if they're not making their numbers, they can be like, no, we don't. Or quietly push them towards the pre-owned copy and be like, hey, well, there is this, and it's a pre-owned version. And if they don't do that, they can get fired. And that's stupid. Yeah, this isn't really an unpopular opinion. This is stupid. Everybody thinks it's stupid. And it's terrible. And at some point, I'm not saying because of this, but there's a lot of different factors going in. But at some point, GameStop is going to go out of business in the next 8-10 years. And everyone's going to see it coming because digital sales are huge. And they're only going to get bigger. So unless GameStop changes a lot of stuff, I'm not just talking about the Circle of Life program. I'm talking about, just business design in general. They're going to go out of business. They're going to go the wayside of Blockbuster and Hollywood Video. Man, I miss Game Crazy. That just makes me sad. But if you want more information on the Circle of Life program, I recommend actually going to YouTube and looking up Pat the NES Punk, because he's been covering it quite a bit. And he's gotten a lot of emails from GameStop employees, past and current, about the Circle of Life program and more inside information on that. But the story is basically that they, it's sad to hear some of these stories from the employees, because they're not bad people. They're just trying to make a buck, or they love games, so they want to work in a game store, and then they have to deal with this. It's stupid. GameStop does a lot of stupid things, and so I don't turn into a whole bunch of other gaming podcasts complaining about GameStop. I'm going to stop right now. So let's carry on. Let's move on to something happy. Do I have anything else happy on here? No, I don't. Oh, yes, I do. For a second, I was worried there. I was like, wait a second. Oh, PS Now support for the PS3 and Vita ends on August 15th of this year. So that sucks. Apparently, Netflix greenlit a miniseries based off of Castlevania. I kind of burped that out. Let's redo that. Netflix has greenlit a Castlevania miniseries. I heard this first on Pat the NES Punk's Completely Unnecessary podcast, and it got me thinking. I was like, I don't know. I'm always uneasy about any video game to film thing. But I think I'm okay with this, only because Netflix has normally done a really good job. They don't try to really push their ideas into something. They let the creators, the directors and the writers and the producers and the editors do what they do to try to create something good. So you've got things like Gotham, Orange is the New Black. Regardless of whether or not you enjoy those, regardless of whether or not I enjoy some of those Netflix originals or not, I can still look at those and be like, well, they're successful to some degree and there's an audience for that, and they're written well. They're structured well. And for Castlevania, as long as it's written well and structured well, I'm okay with it. Now, there's a lot of things they can get into because there's some cool stuff. Obviously, they're probably going to have to start off with a Simon Belmont, storyline with Simon Belmont going in and trying to defeat Dracula and all that. But there's other things in there too. Like, you can go back, Castlevania timeline, Castlevania lore. You can push the clock back, I want to say it was 700 years to, I want to say, Game Boy, or not Castlevania Adventure. Maybe it was Castlevania Adventure. One of those other random spin-off Castlevania games where it was actually the start of the castle, like the Belmont family line of vampire hunters, and you get into the history of it and realize that. And then the birth of Dracula himself, and it's actually a pretty cool little storyline if you want to look into it. But go look into the Castlevania timeline. Maybe I'll do a video about that. I've actually thought about that because it does have a pretty cool timeline. There's a lot of things you can pick from. You can pick from the Castlevania people know with Simon Belmont, the games that were on the NES, or you can pick from the later games which went into prologue, prequels and back information going into the history of the Belmont family and how Dracula became Dracula and the curse of the vampire killer, the whip itself, because that was the game I was talking about. The Belmont guy that was the first vampire killer went to go save his fiance or his wife, I think, from Dracula, but he wasn't Dracula until that point. He was just some necromancer or evil wizard that was working behind the scenes and trying to frame somebody else or something like that. And then he turns her into a vampire, and then it's a sad tragedy story where it's she Belmont and her knew that she was too late to save, and she couldn't be saved because she had already turned into a vampire. And then so and then her soul gets trapped into the whip, and that's why that whip specifically is so important, because it is the vampire killer, because she wants to get back at Dracula. And now the Belmont family is cursed for all eternity to go and kill Dracula, or at least put him back in his grave to sleep over and over again. And it's a sad cycle that happens over and over again. And then you also have the later story with Symphony of the Night on PlayStation with Alucard. Oh, it's Dracula backwards. Who would have saw that? But Alucard and Dracula's son, and he goes and I'm getting that wrong, I think. I don't know, it's late, but wanted to go kill Dracula and all that. And then you have other stories like the ones from the DS where it takes place in the late 1800s, which jumps 100 years, 200 years from the original storylines, which I want to say takes place in the 1600s. But yeah, the Castlevania timeline covers almost a full 1,000 years or more. Don't quote me on that, but I gotta actually look up the information on this because it's pretty knee deep, and I've never really went knee deep in the Castlevania storylines. I only really play the games for the gameplay itself. But there's a lot of stuff you can pull from. There's a lot of good, beefy material you can pull from. But it's a mini series, so they're probably going to be concentrating on one part of that, timeline. And apparently, it was commented that it was going to be more of like a satirical horror with some comedy, but rated R, so it's not for kids. And to some degree, I'm actually absolutely fine with that. Because let's look at it this way. It's Castlevania. I don't want it to be goofy. I want it to be Castlevania. I want it to be a serious story with all that heaviness of, the dark horror. At the same time, if you've played Castlevania, you know what I'm talking about. It's a bit silly. You have to, all the bosses, you've got the swamp things, you got Frankenstein's monster, you've got the mummy, you've got the wolf man, you got all these classic horror movie villains, you even got Medusa and a whole bunch of flying Medusa heads. And it's just it's nuts, it's crazy. You got skeletons throwing bones at you. Is it a fun game? Is that a bad game? No, I'm not saying it's bad. It's super fun. But if in a video game, that absolutely works. You kind of expect that from a video game. You want a good variation of different enemies, so of course you're going to have that kind of stuff. But if I were to watch this in a cartoon or a movie or like a play or, anything dramatic, like drama, if we were to see all those kind of things, it would suddenly feel like a monster mash. And if it took itself too seriously, it'd be like, you realize you've got the entire 50s horror lineup right here, right? It's silly. It's very silly. So as long as it's not like fourth wall breaking, I think it'd be fine. But if it's like a bit ridiculous to some extent and satiric, funny and written very well, so you can still take it seriously with those lighthearted notes and lighthearted comedic breaks, it'll be fine. You know what I mean? I think I'm actually excited about this. I want to say it's going to be airing on Netflix later this year, so maybe expect it around Halloween. That would only make sense if they started releasing these episodes on Halloween. What's the production budget? I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. I probably need to look into this a bit more, like history on the directors and the writers. But it sounds cool, and I like the idea. But am I gonna watch it? Probably. I've got Netflix. It's no hair off my back. It's something to watch. But if you are into Castlevania yourself, maybe it's gonna be something you'd be interested in. Should be interesting, to say the least. Now, there was a couple other things. And I apologize beforehand for getting into this. I hate talking about gossip, and I don't exactly care to some degree. But this one was actually kind of it rubbed me the wrong way. It's this whole PewDiePie scandal, and I feel bad for PewDiePie, and I am on the side of PewDiePie here. Hear me out if you don't know, or if you heard one side of this, one side of the information, which is skewed as all junk. Because I sometimes watch PewDiePie. I watch a lot of YouTubers out there. It really depends on my mood. Sometimes, I don't watch like Gamer from Mars for like 3 weeks, and then I'm suddenly on a Gamer on Mars binge because I want to catch up. Or I watch the AVGN Cinemassacre for like 2 weeks, and then I stop for a month or like a week or so, and then I come back, and I go back and forth. PewDiePie's in that same rotation of moods and stuff. Sometimes I'm really in the mood for PewDiePie and I watch a whole bunch of his stuff, and then I stop for months. It just really depends. And I don't enjoy everything that everybody out there does, and I don't enjoy everything that PewDiePie does, but I still respect, and I find him entertaining, and I'm starting to understand that he's almost everything he does is more satirical these days, and I enjoy that. It's kind of like the Youngtown thing, because Youngtown's pretty satirical himself. Anyways, a lot of news articles have been, rubbing PewDiePie as a racist, and I'm not supporting racism. I'm not supporting, his jokes if they were serious, which they weren't. If you actually look at everything within context of PewDiePie's work, regardless of how ridiculous or stupid you may think it is, he's not being serious. He's being more satirical, or like in a comedic, entertaining way, commentative towards certain things, like the Fiverr incident was what it really spurred this whole racism thing, because he Now, if people are easily offended, tune out for a few seconds. But what he did on Fiverr was he was basically saying, this website is nuts. People are doing anything for $5. So he asked people to say, death to all Jews, subscribe to Keemstar, which was a jab at Keemstar. Now, the thing is, a lot of websites, including people with news agencies you would think are legitimate, took that out of context and just said PewDiePie said death to all Jews. Now, out of context, that's terrible. Yes, it is. It's terrible. So, but within context, you gotta take this into context here. He was showing the ridiculousness of this site, and he got different people on Fiverr accidentally in trouble because he didn't think they would. Did he take the joke a bit too far? Maybe a bit, yeah. But they're just like trying to find any dirt on him, on PewDiePie himself, and then like make people hate him, because he really isn't. PewDiePie's not racist. Go watch H3H3 Productions videos in defense of PewDiePie. Another one, KSI. Go watch. Well, if you're easily offended, don't watch KSI. But if you don't mind KSI, go watch KSI's video on PewDiePie. It's pretty funny. But KSI himself is pretty satirical to some degree. So maybe you won't get the joke that he's trying to project, and get the information that he's trying to portray there. Because sometimes people watch different YouTubers and take them for serious at 100%, and you really can't do that because it's a form of entertainment. It's like saying South Park, it's like watching South Park and then taking everything they say for 100% as their core belief. You can't really do that. They're being satirical. And this is the problem with satire. I love satire. I would love to do more satire on my channel, but people don't understand satire in that moment. Satire, historically, from what I've noticed, only gets truly appreciated well after the fact. You've got two good examples would be Mark Twain and Jonathan Swift. Jonathan Swift got a lot of flack for a book he wrote, or a long essay he wrote called A Modest Proposal, which, if you take everything out of context out of that book, you'd be like, dude, this is some sick, wrong things. Because basically he's in Modest Proposal. What Jonathan Swift says is to deal with the homeless problem in England at that time. This was like 400 or 500 years ago. In Modest Proposal, to fix the homeless and situation that they had, in the growing homeless population they had in England at the time, he said, what you want to do, the best way to deal with this is stop the poor classes from having kids. And if they do have kids, send those kids to food plants so you can turn them into food, and then feed the upper class to give them good nutrients and good food. And it would also take care of food shortages, which is absolutely terrible, but it's satirical. And he was basically showing what he felt and what it was at the time, basically the feelings that the upper class had towards the lower class, that the upper class didn't care about the lower class. And I feel like I'm getting political here, so I apologize, but that's just basically what it is, and he wasn't serious. Obviously he's not condoning cannibalism or infanticide, but that's just what the book was. That's just what he was saying. And he was showing that was wrong, and to an extreme. He went to an extreme to show where certain feelings could possibly go. Of course, England at the time wouldn't go towards cannibalism, but that's not the point. They would still be okay with, killing off a large chunk of the population to fix a situation, which is bad. As you probably agree with me on this. Now, maybe you don't, so maybe you don't get what I'm saying here. But point is, this PewDiePie thing is taken sorely out of context. If you don't understand what I mean, go watch at least 10 of PewDiePie's more recent vloggy type videos, not his Let's Plays, but his vloggy type material, and you'll understand where he's coming from. And then you'll realize he's not a bad person. He's not a racist. He's not a bigotist. He's not, he's not that sort of guy. Does he have offensive humor? Yes, he does. to some degree, he's trying to make a point to the best way he can, while still being entertaining for his audience, like a comedian. And I want to say it was Sargon Khan that had said this, but I guess very recently I heard this from my sister Birdie Berry, because she listens to that kind of stuff and all the time, that he was interviewing JonTron again, and Boogie came in, and Peter DeFranco came on as well. Other YouTubers came on, and they were mentioning, how weird and crazy this PewDiePie situation is, and how, twisted the news agencies are taking the story and just basically lying about PewDiePie, and was commenting on the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia back in like 1917. And so if you don't know what that is, it was the Bolsheviks were the communists, and you had the royalists, which were the white Russians, not the red Russians, which were communists, obviously red. Yeah, you probably all know communist color of red. But during the craziness of all that, and the attack on Moscow and all the riots and everything that was going on, apparently the first person that died in the Bolshevik Revolution was a clown. And that's a sad repeat of history, and I'm not too surprised that history repeats itself. I love my history. I mean, I'm a history buff, and I always see history repeat itself. But apparently the clown had made a joke making fun of the Bolsheviks and the royalists, and it just peeved off both groups, and they killed him. So he was the first person that was officially executed in the revolution. So, yeah, crazy stuff. And they were trying to make an analogy to PewDiePie being, a clown, because he really is just a clown. Some dude being ridiculous on YouTube and making people laugh and entertaining them. And sometimes he makes fun of all parties and groups that get offended easily, because people get offended easily all the time. That's just human nature. What do I think? How is PewDiePie gonna be after this? I think he's gonna be fine. He really is going to be fine. Because here's the thing. Bad publicity is good publicity. Unless that bad publicity, or what makes up that bad publicity, destroys you in the end. Good example would be like Mel Gibson. Here's a good example. Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson said some crazy stuff that people didn't agree with, or even Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise said some stuff that people didn't agree with, and it caused some rabble, and it created bad publicity for them to some degree, with a wide range of the audience. But it put them into the news. People started checking them out. People were like, oh my gosh, this and that. Oh, Mel Gibson is this. Mel Gibson is this. Mel Gibson is that. Tom Cruise is this. Tom Cruise is that. Do you agree with any of them? I'm not going to get into that. But because my point is, that didn't destroy them. They didn't let that destroy them. And in case where it would destroy them, they still did what they did. And they did it well. Like, Mel Gibson is apparently a really good director, and he keeps doing that, and he's going to make a good movie that everybody loves at some point. And he's not destroying himself. He's not getting into drugs or alcoholism or anything like that. It's not, or gambling to destroy his money. And Tom Cruise is the same way. He's still an excellent actor regardless of his personal life or whatever you may disagree with. He's still doing what he does, and he's still the powerhouse actor that he is. Now, in a case where it destroys somebody, where it takes over them, would be like Lindsay Lohan. I don't know why that came up in my head, but Lindsay Lohan, where it'd be like she did some crazy stuff, and then she got DUIs and went to jail and all sorts of stuff. And at first, that bad publicity put her into the spotlight, and more people were interested in Lindsay Lohan. So it's like, okay, first off, it gets you buzzing. It gets the people buzzing about you. But it was a bad thing, because she got addicted to drugs, she got into jail, she got into trouble, and she went to prison, and it destroyed her life. So, yeah, she couldn't do what she did. She became a liability while working on the set, so that publicity turned on her, and then she became the butt of a joke more than anything else. So, yeah, that's kind of sad, but that it is what it is. So for PewDiePie here, PewDiePie's not going to stop anytime soon. PewDiePie's going to keep doing what he does, and he's going to keep growing and evolving in different ways, however that is. And if anything, PewDiePie's name is going to go everywhere because of this, or to some degree, or however far it goes. And people are going to check him out. He's going to gain subscribers, people that disagree with him, people that agree with him, people that realize, well, this isn't really the full story, start subscribing to him. It's actually just going to be good for him, because this kind of situation, he's not destroying himself. He's, as far as I know, and from everything that I've heard about PewDiePie, from interviews and YouTubers and people that have actually worked with him and talked to him, have said he's a level-headed, smart, nice guy. So that's good. I don't think this is going to hurt him in any way. If anything, by the end of this year, he might hit 60,000, 60 million subs by the end of this year because of this. So, if the Wall Street Journal and any other big news sources were trying to destroy him, let's go into conspiracy theories here. If they were trying to destroy him by slandering his name, they did a poor job at it because they don't know their history. So, kind of crazy. You should look into it, actually look into it, and not just take the first headline you see to heart, because oftentimes than not, there are deeper points to a story. Oh, so this was interesting. I noted this, and I'm going down the crazy train with this one. But so Kwebblekop got into some trouble within the rumor mill, and I'm only covering this because he's a prominent YouTube gamer. And my mind went to some crazy thoughts and crazy trains, and I thought it hilarious, even though the situation's not hilarious, and I feel sorry for the guy. But Kwebblekop apparently last year reunited with his father, who was sick, terminally sick with I think it was cancer. And that's good. I'm okay with that. That's awesome that he was able to come back to his father, or his father came back to them. They want to bury the hatchet. I don't know what happened in their past that caused them to have that, falling out with each other. But the fact that they were able to bury that and come back together as a family is awesome, and I think that's awesome. That's good. That's very good. And I feel very sorry for Kwebblekop that it had to be that way. That was the reason why they came back together. It wasn't because they just came back together, but it was just he wanted to spend the last days with his dad while his dad was still alive, and his dad wanted to be with his son again on the last days that he was alive. And then Kwebblekop made a few, memorial videos, about his dad, and trying to, I think honestly what was going on was he was trying to immortalize his dad, try to get people to, get this good image of his dad before he died, just these good things, trying to put as many relevant videos that would make sense dedicated to his father, saying, look, this guy was an important man and all these different things, and he will be missed, and he's an important person to my life. It's incredibly sad. But so the rumor, excuse my French, absolute bullshit chain that's going around is that Kwebblekop did this for clicks and views and buzz to gain more subs, to get that YouTube money. And he was milking his dying dad, for the money and views. Now, I can understand where someone would get that. At the same time, now, I don't watch Kwebblekop. I've kind of seen him as kind of a hack, to be honest, but I still respect what he does. And I can see where he's entertaining for that audience. I'm just not that audience. But, well, what I mean is, a lot of people oftentimes critique him for being a PewDiePie ripoff, but he's in contact with PewDiePie. PewDiePie's in contact with Kwebblekop, so I don't really see what the problem is. If PewDiePie seriously had an issue with Kwebblekop taking his shtick and doing the same thing, would they really be friends? Probably not. And from what I've noticed from people that have actually met Kwebblekop and other YouTubers that have worked with them, I want to say they've all been good. They say he's a nice guy. He's a good guy. And so I'm not exactly sure if he would, milk his dying dad for, the money. And I think what he wanted to do was actually immortalize him on the internet. And that's more of a valorous, act than, skeezy. I've used that word several times tonight, so if that gets annoying, let me know down in the comments below. But it's I feel like people are just trying to nitpick on him to some degree. At the same time, I am kind of on the fence, but at the same time, I want to say I'm leaning towards not, getting on Kwebblekop's case about this because he was sad. He seemed honest about, wanting to do this because he did try to raise money to save his dad or at least pay for the medical bills. And obviously the medical work didn't work and he couldn't do what he wanted to do. And I find that incredibly tragic because, Kwebblekop has a large following on YouTube. If he can wrangle that up and get the charity going so he can get his dad the medical attention he needs to save him, he would do it. And he did raise a bunch of money for his dad, but the doctors weren't able to do what they had to do. He was terminal, and I find that absolutely sad and tragic. And my prayers and my heart goes out to Kwebblekop on this. But one thing I noticed, I'm not trying to be, heartless here, but one funny thing I noticed was this seemed awfully like this one Cyanide and Happiness cartoon I saw called Hello YouTubers. At least I want to say that's what it was called. Basically, it had this YouTuber that started off her vlog, and I want to say this came out several months ago, several months ago last year, before this Kwebblekop thing really started taking precedence on his dad, because those videos started coming out maybe a month ago. I don't really know. I don't pay attention to his channel hard enough. But so I did a little bit of research here. And the Cyanide and Happiness video came out 8 months ago, and the bulk of Kwebblekop's videos came out within the last month and a half about his dad. And let's go down the crazy train. And lighten the mood. Cyanide and Happiness, Hello YouTubers, basically had this fictional YouTuber vlogger like, hey everybody, hello, what's up, boom, that kind of, bubbly vlogger girl, something Bubbles, Lizzie Bubbles, I don't remember what the character's name was. She's like, hey, welcome to my vlog, blah, 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 blah. And then suddenly her mom breaks the scene, and she hears her mom, outside the room, and then, her mom breaks down through her room and starts bawling tears, and it's like, your father, oh, God, he died in a car crash. And then she's like, oh, God, and it's this whole, sob, sad thing, and they're trying to comfort each other, crying on each other's shoulders, and then the cartoon goes with Lizzie Bubbles going up to the webcam again and being like, hey guys, hope you enjoyed that. That was my reaction video to my father's death. And then like and subscribe. See y'all later, my bubbles, my bubblers, whatever. And don't forget to subscribe, and and leave comments down below. Thank you. See you later. It was terrible dark humor, but hilarious. And so I did a little more research, and I watched one Kwebblekop video in particular where it was a week after his dad died, and he was talking about how he's feeling and all these different things about the situation. He got emotional and all sorts of stuff, and I think he was being honest about it and wanted to let his audience know how he's doing through this through his hard situation. But one thing I noticed was at the end of the video, his girlfriend was there, or fiance, I don't know, and they were both emotional about this whole situation. But it still ended with, all right, see you guys later, my cops. I guess apparently that's what he calls his audience, that sort of thing, where he calls his like, all right, don't forget to subscribe if you're new, and see all my cops later. See ya. And I was just like, oh my gosh, Cyanide and the Happiness predicted the future. I know this is an old gag from the Simpsons with Donald Trump and all that, with and then Lady Gaga and the Simpsons predicting the future with different episodes. Cyanide and Happiness predicted the future. So let's roll with this one. Let's roll with this and really look into it now, because my mind, after thinking about this, went down a whole crazy train of being okay, well, Kwebblekop, so his viewers are the Kwebblekop cops. That's the KKK. Because he spells cop with a K. Kwebble is K. cop is K. He calls his people K, cops. So, and then if you go down into that, go back, 125 years, what was the insignia for the triple K? It was actually 3 Ks interlocked into each other, creating a triangle. A triangle. What's that? That's a sign of the Illuminati. Who hasn't defended PewDiePie in this? Hear me out. Who hasn't defended PewDiePie in this? Kwebblekop. Then this one was kind of mean, but like, okay, let's take a quick look at Kwebblekop's profile. He's got kind of a pointy chin. He's got kind of a flat forehead line. It creates an upside-down triangle. Illuminati confirmed. Cyanide and Happiness saw the future. Kwebblekop's in on it, and he's working with the Wall Street Journal. The big cat's upstairs with the money, trying to take down PewDiePie. So yeah, let's go down even more crazy trains and be like, yes, Illuminati confirmed. Obama, Donald Trump. Just list off other random things. The pyramids, UFOs. Is Kwebblekop a reptilian? I don't know. I don't care. I don't watch his stuff really. Oh boy, I feel like that segment sketch was dumb. Oh my gosh, this is going to be a long one. That's okay. There was a lot of news to cover. So to end this podcast, the PONGCAST, as always, let's end on a good note, regardless of what we talked about today, and talk about the games of the week. Bum, 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 bum. So I decided, finally, on how I'm going to, structure this games of the week thing. I'm going to, have at least one new game that you should go check out, and one old game you should go check out. That way I get my bases covered with both my younger audience and my retro audience. Or the younger audience that are into retro games, or the retro audience that wants new games. So, I got my bases covered. So, oh yeah, I didn't talk about World of Tanks Blitz, did I? No? Did I? Anyways, let's talk about it now. World of Tanks Blitz. Yes, it was actually one of the games I've been playing this week. I just picked it up a few days ago. I have a few issues with it. There seems to be a pretty heavy paywall on, trying to, progress through the game and get higher tiered tanks and better tanks and all different things, but the core gameplay itself is super fun, and I enjoy it. I enjoy these kind of simulation war strategy type games. They are very fun, and this one is actually designed pretty well, and it's got a huge array of World War II era, 1930s, 1940s, maybe some 1950s. I haven't really looked at the entire roster of tanks from United States, the UK, Russia, Soviet Union, and Japan. And it's awesome. So, but I made the stupid mistake of being like, well, I don't mean to be down on my own personal family culture here, but I know historically Japanese tanks aren't the best. So let's just start up with that and work our way up, because, if it's just a practice game, practice with the worst product possible. That way, once you come up to the really good stuff, it becomes easy. I thought about that, and then, but the paywalls, man, the paywalls. If you're not careful for those first few days, it really reels you in, and you'll end up using all the currency that they give you, the premier currency, like gold coins, silver coins, whatever, and your experience points, and you won't exactly know what you're supposed to be doing in the game, and then you won't be able to get the good tanks that you want, or in the most effective fashion to progress through the game. But regardless of all that, I believe it's possible to play the game without paying and finally reach the end goal. It's going to be a huge grind to do that. So maybe I might cave at some point this year and throw down $10. I don't know. There's options for a lot more. It's DLC. It's a free-to-play game. Obviously, there's options to pay $50 or $100. Maybe it's something that you would want to do. I don't necessarily like doing that sort of thing with games, but because I feel like I just get cheated out, because it's something I should be able to work towards myself. But as far as I can tell, it's not impossible. So I don't know. It's a good game. It's at least worth a look. It is free, so there's no hair off your back. Go check it out. It's fun. It's available on Steam. There is a mobile version on Android and iOS. I don't know how good that is. Takes too much space. My phone doesn't have it. So it's probably good. So that probably means it also works on tablets as well, or just as better, or better on a tablet. So go check that out. World of Tanks Blitz. If you enjoy moving around a tank that's clunky as all balls with real tense gameplay where you're sitting there and scared that the tank is an enemy tank is going to just blast you to bits, it's something you'd be interested in. It's surprisingly very, very fun. I heard about it last year and never got around to it until recently, and I'm pleasantly surprised. I like it. It gets my stamp of approval. An easy B. Yeah, I know B or a 7 out of 10 is like the lazy review score, but you know what? Whatever. I wouldn't say it's awesome. I wouldn't say it's bad. It's actually a really good game, but I wouldn't say it's the most awesome thing since sliced bread. It's a B. It's a B plus at best. Makes me want to do a let's play of it. Some matches I do really well. Some matches I do terrible because I just get unlucky in certain situations. But it's a fun game. Yes, World of Tanks Blitz. So my last 2 games I have on here, I said 2 games. New, one old, but I chose 2 new ones because I couldn't decide. And the second one is actually a Valentine's Day themed game. Not really, but you'll see what I mean. First one, before the Valentine's Day theme, is Truxton on the Sega Genesis. It's a bullet hell shooter. Replayed it recently. It was super fun. You can't really go wrong with it. It's a well-designed shmup. If you like bullet hells, you should check it out. But it's technically before Japanese-style bullet hells became a serious thing and a genre of its own. It's just, that crazy top-down shooter, though, of like a spaceship going through, pew, 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 that sort of thing. But technically, if you want to break these shoot 'em ups into eras, it's just before the bullet hells and the last great top-down shooter before bullet hells became a thing. But Truxton is freaking awesome. And the only reason why I came back to it, and I come back to it all the time now, is because of, Classic Game Room. Best game reviewer on the YouTubes. I've been watching him since 2003, before YouTube, on his own website, on the Classic Game Room. Yeah, no, he's awesome. But yes, he always raves about Truxton being his favorite game. I would have to disagree with him, saying it's not my favorite shmup. I don't know what my favorite shmup is. I'd have to actually really think about that. Truxton's high on the list, but it's still fun. Anyways, yeah, the music is pretty good too. That's not the draw for me. It's just the gameplay, the straight up gameplay. The gameplay is awesome. Go check that out. It's fun. Anyways, last game of the week I have is Junior Pac-Man on the Atari 2600. Why is that Valentine's Day themed, you may ask? Well, first off, let's forget about that. It's an awesome game. And for the Atari 2600, it's the best official Pac-Man game they have. How is the arcade version? It's really good if you love Pac-Man. Now here's the bad thing about Junior Pac-Man that a lot of people disliked when it first came out, and a lot of people disliked around the time period, and why you never see Junior Pac-Man anywhere. It's hard, and it's double the size, I want to say, and there's no warps and all of that, so, you don't get that instant gratification of being able to beat mazes relatively easily or quickly, as long as you plan it out, because there's just going to be some points where because it has a scrolling screen, you're not going to be able to see some of the ghosts. You're going to be running blind. Why does he eat toys? I don't know. That's a choking hazard. Is it still a fun game? Yes, it is. I love it because I love Pac-Man and all that good stuff. So go check that out, Junior Pac-Man on the Atari 2600, if you can find a copy of it. That's going to be tricky for some of y'all out there. You wouldn't know where to look. So I would recommend maybe emulation. That's really your only option at this point. Because even finding a good arcade cabinet of Junior Pac-Man is going to be near impossible. Emulation, apparently. So, yeah. I don't remember the last time I played it in the arcade. It was a long time ago. Days gone by. But why is that Valentine's Day themed, you may ask? Well, Junior Pac-Man is the love child of Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man, and that's what came of it. You can argue with me that it'd be Baby Pac-Man and the freak hybrid of having a pinball machine there as well. But, Love Childs. We're going to end on that. The love child of Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man. So until next time, where can you find me at? Everywhere else? Well, you can find me on YouTube at www.youtube.com/Mr. Sensei Pong. That's MrSenseipong. You can also find me on Twitter at Sensei_Pong or on Facebook at facebook.com/SenseiPong. You can... Oh, for my YouTube audience, you can find this podcast on iTunes, Android, and Stitcher. That's what it was called. I don't use Stitcher, so whatever. I just know I'm feeding into Stitcher as well. So yes, you can find this free on iTunes, Android, and Stitcher. And until next time, leave your comments down below. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. It helps support the podcast. Subscribe to this podcast. If you're on iTunes, leave an iTunes review. Give me 5 stars or not. It's up to you. Just talk about the podcast. It puts me on the radar, regardless of how many stars you give me. Just give me a review. I want to know how I'm doing. Give me your comments. What should I cover next time? What should I cover overall? What did I do wrong? What did you like? Until next time, this is going on for far too long, so I'm going to head out of here. Sensei Pog signing out. Like and subscribe.